Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is Monique here, Auntie Witch with Morning Tea and Tarot. And I have a couple of announcements I want to make before we get started on today's topic. First of all, yay, I have the new webcam, and it's so much better than the regular camera was. And I've actually changed rooms and gone into a room where the lighting's a little better. So I'm happy to have an improvement on the video quality this morning. So that's pretty exciting. And if you hear this, I should probably turn this off. The hum is the heater because this room is really cold when I get up in the morning. That's better. Okay, so a couple of announcements. First of all, I had a fantastic conclusion to my Introduction to Tarot class this last Sunday in my house with my 3 girls who were taking the class from me. We had such a good time, and they got so much out of the class. I'm so proud of them. So we, hi Susan, how are you? Good morning. So I wanted to, yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun touch. I'm talking about kitchen witchcraft today, and no kitchen is complete without your witch's broom in it. So I wanted to bring it in to show everybody. So yeah, I just finished the Introduction to Tarot class in my living room, as I was saying, and oh my goodness, it's morning and I'm still on my first cup of tea and my brain's kind of falling out. Thanks, Susan. It's good to hear from you. Okay, so what I was going to say is that I will be putting the Introduction to Tarot class into production for the website very, very soon, now that I have actually finished teaching it in person and I have all of the handouts and all of the lecture material created. So that class is going to be in production and it will be available to anybody online. Probably, I'm shooting for January. That's my goal. So you can look forward to that. I'm also going to be putting together my first webinar in a month or two for my Fundamentals of Ritual Magic class, which I'm looking forward to sharing with you, especially now that I have the new webcam. It's amazing what modern technology can do to improve your ability to actually get certain things done. So today, okay, so I think that was all the announcements I wanted to make. So the topic for today was creating an eco-friendly kitchen. And before I get into the details of that, I wanted to share a little background story with you. I grew up in a very rural sort of agricultural setting. I've been a horse girl my whole life growing up, and I've always been, you know, the girl hanging out at the barn after school all my years. And for many years working in the horse industry, I spent, you know, anywhere between 12 and 18 hours a day, either on the road or, you know, schlepping through mud at the barn and taking care of horses and so forth. So the point of that is that I never was really a terribly domestic female in terms of the household environment. And one of the things that was really hard for me to do was to make friends with my kitchen, especially by the time I actually got married. I would walk into my kitchen and it felt like being on an alien planet. I had no idea what to do with this room and all this stuff in it. I was used to working all day and, you know, eating takeout on the way home and kind of living out of a can because, you know, I'd work 18 hours a day and who wants to cook when you get home at midnight, right? So learning how to make friends with my kitchen was not actually something I was able to do until I started to dive more deeply into my daily sort of Wiccan practice. And what I found, first of all, was that I hated being in the kitchen. I didn't like to cook. And partly the reason I didn't like to cook is because I found it intimidating and because I never really learned how to do that when I was a kid. So it was out of my comfort zone, which was a good reason for me to dislike it very much. And it was also one of those things where I felt like, you know, was always a little more of an outdoor girl, so I wasn't really that sort of stay home cookie baking mother of the house kind of archetype. That was just never my archetype. So it was a really big struggle for me to step into that. And I had to create a gimmick to be able to do that. And so the only way I could stand to be in my kitchen was to turn it into a witchcraft temple. So, you know, you use whatever works, right? So I traded in all of my regular cookbooks for, you know, witchcraft cookbooks, and I started to I decorated my kitchen with all kinds of, you know, cool witchy stuff, and I created an altar, and the next thing you know, I was doing pretty good. I was cooking, I was making pot roast, I was, you know, baking a pie every now and then. I mean, it really helped. So, and it was fun because it was a way that I could step into that sort of more feminine household role and still be in alignment with who I really was, and not be able to afraid to sort of express that in the sanctuary of my own house. And there's a lot of people who practice Wicca who are really they're really into that. You know, they're really into, one of the big draws for them to witchcraft is the whole idea of the kitchen witchcraft, and the root working, and the herbal magic, and the cooking magic, and the spell working, and the sort of the hedge witches that are out in their herb gardens all the time. So it's fun. It's fun to sort of lighten things up and get out of your intellectual ceremonial magic head a little bit, and just kind of get into your daily routine and the life of your household and create a space. And I actually do have a segment in my Fundamentals of Ritual Magic class for creating sacred space in your house for all kinds of reasons in all different kinds of rooms. And we go over sort of feng shui tactics and you know, ways to declutter and things like that. So I wanted to pull a little snippet of this out of that curriculum to just kind of share with you here today. And one of the things we talk about in the Fundamentals of Ritual Magic is ego paganism, and trying to align your witchcraft practice with as many ego-friendly practices as you can. And one of the ways you can do that is to start in your kitchen. So, you know, first of all, it's no great secret that the world is absolutely inundated with plastic. And one of the things that is so hard for me to watch when I get on Facebook is to see these videos and to see these articles about, you know, all of our sea life that's dying because they're swallowing 10 million pounds of plastic. And it's just sort of horrifying to me. So one of the first things I kind of tried to make a pact about doing very recently was to try to eliminate as much plastic in my kitchen as possible. And so I started to go towards, I'm really moving towards buying many of my dry goods now in bulk when and where I can. And what that does is it allows me to repurpose a lot of my glass jars from other products that I've purchased, you know, food products. And you can bring those jars into the grocery store if you have, you know, a little local grocery store that sells bulk food items. All you have to do is bring your container that you bring with you from home and have them weigh it at the kitchen counter. And what they'll do is they'll weigh the empty container for you, and they'll write the weight in a little pen on the bottom of the jar. And then you take your jar with you through the store and you fill it up with your rice or your beans or your oatmeal or whatever it is you're going to buy. And they can weigh it for you properly at the register because they've already weighed your empty container. So that's one solution for the elimination of plastic. And, you know, for example, like I bought this jar of pickles in, you know, this was like when I was married and I had 3 kids. And so, you know, we actually ate this big jar of pickles. But it's a really cool jar, and it's actually got like little engraving kind of, I don't know if you can see some sort of embossed little designs on it. It's a cool jar, and it's a really handy jar for things like rice and for things like oatmeal or dry goods and beans and lentils or whatever. I mean, you can put all kinds of stuff in these jars. So if you have these really cool jars like that, I even make sun tea in this jar. You know, these make nice, plastic storage containers that you can store on your kitchen counters or on your cabinets or whatever. The other thing I started to do, you know, for the things that you don't buy in great quantities of bulk, is I've got a bunch of smaller jars, like my spaghetti jars, spaghetti sauce jars, that you can put smaller stuff in. Like if you can buy our little health food store, or our little store, it's called Natural Selection here in Grass Valley. You can purchase bulk loose teas. So these smaller jars make great jars to put your loose teas in. And for things that you don't buy in as much quantity, like maybe, you know, like maybe your chocolate covered almonds or your yogurt covered pretzels or whatever it is, you can use these smaller jars and repurpose these jars for some of those other stuff. And once again, you can eliminate all of the packaging and all of the plastics. And it's also cheaper to buy in bulk. So you're saving money, because what a lot of people don't realize is that one of the reasons why the groceries are so expensive is because you're paying primarily for the packaging on most of it. So that's one way to cut your costs and to cut your plastic consumption in your household. The other thing I've found that these jars are really good for is crafting supplies. And I happen to be a beadwork artist, so all of my spaghetti jars, because I buy my beads in bulk, end up being my bead storage jars for my beadwork. And actually, I just have to show off a little. This is some of my beadwork that I do. I have a second store under a different name called Hypnotique Tribal Designs, where all of my seed bead embroidery work is up for sale. If there's anybody interested, I'll post a link on that. But yeah, jars. These are great as long as you actually use them. You know, you want to kind of avoid collecting jars and not using them and just having them sitting around creating clutter in your household, because a bunch of empty jars that aren't getting used aren't very useful, obviously. And it's really easy to do. It's really easy to get into that trap of, oh, this could be really useful. And so you save all this stuff and then it's just sitting there, and pretty soon you're inundated with clutter again. So if you're going to save your stuff, be sure you actually use it. And it's kind of a discipline. And what you don't use should, you know, recycle when you can, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing. Another thing that I really only about 2 months ago discovered, and I was absolutely pleased about this because I'd never seen these before, is some stores now can sell you these lovely little mesh bags. They're like a cloth, sort of, I don't know what they're made of. Let's see if it says on the tag. They're, yeah, it doesn't say what it's made of. It might be a synthetic of some kind, but it's a mesh bag so it's breathable, and you can put your produce in it when you go shopping. So they have these reusable produce vegetable bags now, and I bought, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them, were like $6 for the package. And I'm seeing them now more often in some of the other stores. I've seen them in a couple of stores in town now. So I was really excited to find these. Of course, the trick with these is to actually remember to bring them to the store with you when you go shopping, and I'm still not quite in the habit of that. So, and then, of course, you know, bringing your own grocery bags, your own cloth grocery bags. And as a witch and a Wiccan, I, of course, you know, who wants just a plain old plastic bag when you can have like a really cool Celtic knotwork grocery bag, right? With a dragon on it or something like that. So you can be really creative in your eco-friendly pagan practice, and starting in your kitchen and starting with your daily grocery shopping habits is a really good way to eliminate a huge percentage of, bye Susan. Yeah, I am going to be doing this regularly. This is on every Tuesday morning at 9:30. I was doing it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I think I'm going to do it just once a week. So definitely Tuesday mornings at 9:30. So yeah, all right. Have a great day, Susan. It was good to see you. So this is, I always get distracted when I talk to people when they're showing up. I forget what I was saying. So yeah, this is a really good way to cut down your what do they call it? Your footprint, your ecological footprint, or whatever it is. There's a term for it. I can't remember. And you know, if you consider how much plastic one individual in a year can use, just in their daily sort of Americanized culture, you can really see how much of an impact that one person can make when they stop consuming all that plastic and packaging, and how much less waste product ends up in our landfills and, you know, out on the streets and in the oceans and everything else. So can you imagine what, you know, an entire coven of pagans could really make a dent if they really started utilizing some of these daily eco-minded, mindful practices in their pagan path. And this brings me to, let's see, am I done talking about the kitchen? Was there something else about the kitchen I wanted to talk about? Oh yeah, there is. There's a few more things. So another way that I ended up making friends with my kitchen was, as I said, I was creating, I had to create an altar. So I sort of have these little altars all over my house. I love creating altars. Some of us are really into that. So a really nice way to make your kitchen become kind of a sacred space is to have a place where you can, you know, light a candle while you're cooking. Maybe have a little statue in your kitchen of one of the sort of the home and hearth deities. I don't have an official statue yet because I haven't found one that I've wanted to purchase yet. But I think if I was going to choose a household kitchen deity, mine would probably be Demeter. And there are statues you can get, you know, for certain deities. And I, you know, find a place to set it up in your kitchen. You can have a little candle, a little bit of incense. I'm going to post some photographs for you that I've taken in my kitchen. I actually have an entire shelf filled with my essential oil collection. And I do have, because I live alone, I don't have to worry about it. If you have small children, and if you have, you know, a big family with a lot of people, and particularly small children or pets that get on your furniture, this might not be something you want to do. But for me, it's not a problem, as I said, because at the moment I live alone and there are no small children in my house that I have to worry about. So all of my incense making supplies and my essential oil supplies are all in my kitchen in separate little cubbies. So I have like an entire shelf for my essential oils, so they're right there where I can see them. And when I want to make something, I can just go over and I have a bowl sitting right there on the top of that particular shelf, where if I wanted to, you know, make some bath salts or make some incense or do some root working or some magic stuff, I just have my bowl there. I can, you know, put my salts in there, mix them all up, pick my oil out, and it's all right there in my kitchen. Now, if you have kids, this is something to really consider, because many of these essential oils and many of the ingredients that goes into incense making is toxic. It can be highly toxic, especially if you have little kids that are inclined to put things in their mouth. So I have a friend who has a 2-year-old toddler who has brought her child to my house on one occasion. And I had to set the ground rule the minute they walked in the door, and I had to tell them, you know, under absolutely no circumstances is your child allowed to be in my kitchen unsupervised. Because if she puts anything in her mouth, or if she spills, you know, if she climbs up on the shelf and she spills any of those essential oils, some of those oils are highly caustic. They'll burn your skin. You know, they're not to be taken internally, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you have children, be really careful about your witchcraft supplies and be responsible about how you store them. Either store them in a locked cabinet if you happen to have one, or store them in containers that your children or your pets cannot get into, because that is a potentially very dangerous scenario should, you know, small children or pets get into that stuff. And even touching it on their skin. Like I said, some of that stuff is really irritating to the skin. If you're an incense maker, by the way, I don't know how many of you out there might be into this kind of stuff. if you're working with herbs and if you're working with incenses in particular, there's things you need to know about the toxicity of certain substances that you may have in your incense making supplies, particularly with saltpeter, which is not only highly flammable and should never be mixed with water, but will also cause men in particular should not handle saltpeter because it causes impotency. So tell your husbands to stay out of your saltpeter. And if you male witches out there are making incenses, wear gloves when you're working with that stuff. So if you're going to be making, if you're going to be really practicing the art of kitchen witchcraft, please, please, please be responsible and be educated on the substances you're using, and make sure you know what's poison and what isn't, and make sure you do your research and do your homework before you just start mixing stuff up, because like I said, you can get into a lot of trouble with some of these things if you don't know what you're doing. So, okay, that lecture aside. So yeah, I have my, a lot of my witchcraft supplies actually in my kitchen because it's just a sensible place in my life for them to be, and they're easy to get to. I don't have to go, looking through the boxes and the shelves for what I need. They're just right there, just like my dishes and my coffee cups. I can just look at them, grab what I need, and do what I need to do, and I don't have to waste a lot of time looking for stuff. So that's how my kitchen is set up. And I'll post some pictures of some of those things. And of course, no kitchen is complete without your token kitchen witch statue, which I have, and also your token witch's broom. I bought this broom. This is a fantastic broom. This is a natural. You can see this is made of a natural tree branch. I don't know what kind of wood this is. Maybe oak. I'm not sure. And it's an actual, industrial use broom, just like you'd buy at the hardware store. It's not a decorative broom. This is a broom that actually functions, and it's reinforced, it's sturdy, it's great for sweeping the porch, it's great for sweeping the house. But it's got this really cool natural tree branch on it, and I bought it at our little local sort of healthy organic food store called Natural Selection. They carry it, and I think up on the ridge they carry these at Mother Truckers. Some of them have, this one doesn't, some of them have carvings of like little wizards' faces on them. They're very cool. I spent about $30 for this broom, and I love it. I was so tired of my plastic brooms that were falling apart and they were ugly, and I just didn't even want to sweep my house with them because they really bothered me. So I've been wanting like a really cool classic witch's broom for a long time, and I finally found one. So I paid, I can't remember if I said I paid about $30 for this. You can find some really good artisan made useful brooms that you can actually use. You can find a lot of them on Etsy. There's a lot of people that are making some just beautiful brooms. A friend of mine was telling me about one the other day she had seen that was almost like tie-dyed, like the bristles were white, and it had like a gradient of different colors fading into each other, and she was going to try and figure out either where to get one or how to make one. She said they were really cool. I haven't seen those yet. But you can find all kinds of brooms, and what's cool about this one is that you can actually decorate it if you want. You can, it's got the little hole drilled on the top. You can hang stuff from the top. You could probably glue some stones or carve some runes into it, or take your wood burner and get crafty with it. So you can really embody the archetype that way. And that's another segment I also talk about in the Fundamentals of Ritual Magic class that I'm offering online. Is we talk a little bit about broom lore, and there's a whole segment in there on how to decorate your broom and how to use your broom for magical purposes and so forth. So there's some fun stuff. I just wanted to kind of give you some little teasers. about what you can expect to find in some of that material. So yeah, I think that about covers just about, that's a good start. So that's kind of where I'm at with my kitchen. I'm really trying to make a shift, you know, and I'm trying to clean, just kind of make the house a little, you know, I live in a really old, actually I live in a really old mobile home trailer. And it's kind of hard to feel eco-friendly in this trailer because it's so old and it's so outdated. And it's a fixer-upper, definitely. But, you know, there's all these little hacks you can do, and to just kind of make the space your own, and to give it the atmosphere that appeals. And every practitioner is going to have their own little type of atmosphere that they want to create that makes them feel like they can really get into the groove of that practice. And I also have my dragon collection in my kitchen. All my dragons live in my kitchen. I don't know why. They just migrated to the kitchen. It made my kitchen more interesting, and it made it a place, like I said, I really needed to turn my kitchen into a place that I actually wanted to be in. And I still struggle with it a little bit, but the dragons really help. So, and then I have, you know, sort of a magical collection of coffee cups. This is kind of my go-to teacup. It's got a wolf on it. My best friend from high school gave this to me one year for my birthday. And this just seems to be the cup I always reach for because it's just the right size, and I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so there's your eco-friendly kitchen witchcraft tips for the day. Let's get to the tarot card for the day and then wrap this up a little bit. The card I pulled today is the Three of Swords. Still a little hard to see. It's the Three of Swords, and it actually came up in the reversed position. So this is one of those cards that actually gets better when it's upside down. In its upright position, it tends to indicate some difficulties with grief and sorrow. So in the reverse position, this card represents the passing away of some of those difficult emotional times. So the card for today is going to challenge you to begin to let go of any emotional difficulties or emotional heartaches or heartbreaks or things that you've been upset about. Today's the day to try to let go of that and to move on and find something more positive to move on towards. I'm always interested to see how the tarot card I pull coincides with the lecture that I give for a particular installment of this little live stream I do. And in a way, I kind of see this as, you know, we were talking about, you know, like the plastic and all the sea life that's dying, and I mean, it's tragic, it's horrible. So it's kind of interesting that this card comes up in this position, because you can almost interpret that as a strategy to move away from tragedy, a strategy for actually making some executive decisions. And it is the sword, it is the suit of sword. So the ability for the mind to actually make a decision to overcome a problem is kind of applicable to the topic today. So that's your challenge. Make a decision today to overcome a problem. Make a decision to let go of something painful that maybe is not serving you anymore, that is just becoming excess baggage at this point. So that is your challenge for the day. I'm going to wrap this up. I think I gave all the announcements that I wanted to give everybody. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a picture. I'm going to post a picture of the card. I'm also going to post some pictures that I took of a couple of the things in my kitchen, just to give you an idea of creating sort of your kitchen witchcraft space. And And then we'll see you. Oh, that was the other announcement. I was just telling Susan, I've been doing the morning tea and tarot show twice a week. I think I'm going to go down to doing it once a week because of time and scheduling. So my Thursdays have the potential to get a little busier. So I might not have the time in the mornings to do this on Thursday mornings. So I'm going to officially make the decision that the show will continue once a week, every Tuesday morning at 9:30, and that's Pacific Standard Time. Ask Auntie Witch is a magical advice column. So if you want to join me live, you're welcome to bring your questions about absolutely anything regarding your magical practice, or questions about magic, or questions about witchcraft. This is kind of a free advice column for those of you who maybe are on the fence, maybe you're interested in witchcraft, but you don't know a lot about it. Maybe you have some questions, maybe you don't know where to look for your answers. Maybe you are an experienced, or you've been practicing for a while. Maybe you have some questions about doing rituals, or some questions about some particular material. If I can help you answer your questions, I will. If not, I'll try to help you find the answers. And some of the best questions may end up being on my blog, on my website, which is at www.templeofunderworldstudies.com. And I think that's all I wanted to tell everybody. It always seems like I'm forgetting something. So, all right, well, it'll come to me, and when it does, I'll mention it next week. So we'll see you next week on Tuesday morning at 9:30 Pacific Standard Time. I'm in California. For Ask Auntie Witch. Bring your coffee, bring your questions, and I'll see you then. All right, bye-bye.